Welcome to my show about amazing people to know. Creativity is tough, but this is Artsy Fartsy Things and Stuff. So sit back and chill. Maybe we can all learn a skill. You can never get enough of Artsy Fartsy Things and Stuff.
Hello. Please forgive the interruptions and the low quality of this production. Everything here is done during the age of the pandemic, and our interviews are done via the internets, and they are problematic. So please forgive the beeps and blurps and stutters and skips and things like that, because it's the best we can do in the pandemic. Welcome to Artsy Fartsy Things and Stuff, a conversational interview podcast about creative, amazing people doing creative, amazing things and stuff. Okay, so, wow, the past few weeks have gotten intense. People were protesting wearing masks in public spaces, then another shady, fearful police officer overreacted and killed another unarmed black man. Amongst public outrage at the fact that the police officers responsible for the unnecessary deaths of another black human being, peaceful protests burst into nationwide looting and rioting. Then, NASA and SpaceX teamed up to launch some humans in a rocket into space. Is outer space being used as a distraction? Who the hell knows? Do I love space shit? I do. But does it distract from more pressing matters? Abso-freaking-lutely. Is it a great distraction from the pandemic? It is. But is it a calculated dog and pony show? Probably. We have some shit to work out, folks. Systemic racism has got to be ended. Humans need to evolve beyond this BS, but unfortunately it appears that may not be happening in our lifetimes. But such is life. The world barrels forward, keeps spinning, and apparently if we want to continue to be a part of it, we just need to hold on for dear life, because this shit seems to be just hanging on by a thread. On that note, we had the legendary USA Today best-selling writer Russell Nohelty on the show. Known for his successful Kickstarter campaigns, building epic creative communities, host of the Complete Creative podcast, he has created fan-favorite graphic novels like Ichabod Jones and Katrina Hates the Dead, and an impressive catalog of other amazing books. The interview was recorded back in April, so some of the things we talked about may have already happened, and some of the things that we talked about are happening right now. We get into a lot of intense stuff. It's a great conversation, and it's happening right now. Since I've known you over the years, like you're kind of a ninja when like problems come your way. You have a very fast mind that quickly moves left and right and keeps moving forward. You've largely made your career through conferences and conventions and making real world human connections and talking with people face to face, and you become an expert at selling your books face to face to people, and that's a thing that you've become not only become known for, but you're just very good at it. Hell, that's how we met. I just walked by your table at the Long Beach Comic-Con, and random conversation started out of nowhere years ago, and here we are years later, still chatting. You've been experimenting with doing like virtual conferences and keeping that energy alive as best as you can throughout a virtual contactless world. And if you don't mind, take us through some of the process that you went through when you decided to come up with that idea.
Sure. Well, I mean, I appreciate, I don't know if I guess I wish I didn't have to pivot so much to become an expert in it, but it has just become a thing that I do in my everyday life, is sort of try something, watch it explode majestically in my face, and then try and pick up the pieces over and over and over and over and over and over again until hopefully getting a little bit more success each time, and figure out what works and what doesn't work. So a bunch of conventions canceled, and I had two options: either do nothing or do something. And I figured that I should be out in front of all of this. I had no idea how I was going to make money on it. All of the things that I'm doing right now are basically free, just to get brand awareness and to try things and to maybe latch on something that will really resonate with people. But I figured that I'm pretty good at conventions, at being at conventions. I've thought about running them in my past, especially one for my fans of my work. So I decided I would do sort of a wannabe press convention called WannaCon last month, and so I put a bunch of my friends together, a bunch of wannabe press collaborators, a bunch of people who were affected by shows, and we did our first show. It went pretty well. There were things that I liked and there are things that I didn't like. And so I retooled right after that show and set about doing two more conventions. So I have one coming up on the 18th and 19th of this month called the Online Writers Conference with my friend Nick Nelson. And we are bringing together a whole bunch of awesome writers, agents, editors, author services people to talk about basically soup to nuts, everything from pre-writing through publishing your book. And we're having keynotes by Jody Lenai, who writes Myth Adventures. She's written in Piers Anthony's Xanth universe. She's written with Anne McCaffrey and a whole bunch of other authors. We're also going to have Tanya Del Rey, who's a writer for a book called War on the 13th from Random House. She also wrote and drew the Sabrina comics for a few years. We are having Jonah Saul, who is a million plus selling author of thriller books, mainly the Sarah Roberts series. Where I think he has 22 books in that series now. We're having a publisher, Joe Beal and Ellie Blue from Microcosm, who's they're a mid-sized publisher, to talk about like how to publish. And then we are also having Kaja and Phil Folio, who are Hugo Award-winning artists and writers for Girl Genius. So I mean, I wanted to do something for the writer community that I've been serving for the last 5 years. And I don't know, I figured I didn't have anything else to do, so I might as well try it. So that's that this weekend. And then 3 weekends from now, on May 1st and 2nd, I'm having a show called Alt FCD, which is a replacement, online replacement for Free Comic Book Day, which moved. And for that show, we're having Marv Wolfman, who created the Teen Titans, Richard Starkings, who created Elephant Man and lettered The Killing Joke. We're having Kevin Eastman and his team from Drawing Blood, a creator of Ninja Turtles, is going to be stopping by and doing a panel for us. Sandy Carpenter, who's John Carpenter's wife and runs Storm King Publishing. And then a whole bunch of other writing. For that one, we're basically taking you from idea through publishing of a comic book, not a novel. So if you're a writer of some type or a creator of some type, the next month you're going to get 2 conferences from me, and one from Nick Nelson and one from my friend Neo Edmond, talking about how to write both novels and comics. And then I'm going to regroup after that, take a little bit of time off, and sort of see what the next step is, whether it's doing another writer conference, but maybe for movies, or doing a self-publishing conference, or doing something to try and keep the ball moving. But I mean, I'd be lying if I said it was anywhere near profitable. I'm just hoping that it helps like build the mailing list and build the complete creative brand and give something back to the community. I figure if I can't make money, at least I can give back.
It's interesting. I was interviewing another author in the podcast just an episode ago. He's done interviews on news programs, and he's, like he goes to places, does book conferences and public speaking events. And even like his preferences, like physical books, like that he ships to people. Have you given thought to how that might need to shift in the future as far as selling books to people? Like, do you think that it's going to be more of a like a digital download experience in the future? So like
I have no idea. Honestly, I don't. I think right now people have not fully understood the ramifications of what's coming,
Mhm.
and so they're still acting as if everything is normal
Yeah,
when nothing is normal.
yeah.
I will tell you that I have no plans of going back to conventions before 2022. I have just read my first study where it cited that 50% or more of people when theaters open are going to be hesitant to go back into theaters.
Oh yeah.
So I'm, I mean, I, I have no idea what's going to change. And frankly, every time I think I have a handle on it, everything upends itself again.
Yeah.
So I do know there won't be a vaccine until late next year, if even next year, assuming that the ones that they're working on now are working. So there's pretty much no hope to do conventions until there's a vaccine. I don't see them using the restrictions to like do sporting events or anything big and elective until there's some sort of herd immunity or vaccine. So
Yeah.
something's got to change. I can't go 2 years without shows or making money outside of Kickstarter. I had 4 Kickstarters planned this year. We've gone through 2. They went quite well, but the Kickstarters pretty much just repay the production funds for our books. They don't really give us any profit. The profit comes from shows. So I'm working on ways to run ads and do marketing that's different than what I've done before.
Mhm.
I've been hesitant to do any of this stuff, but I don't think there's another option. I mean, I've
Right.
got 7,000 books in my garage right now, and more books coming. So I have to get rid of them. They've got to sell somehow. Otherwise, I've got to start pulping them, and I would rather not do that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I've already stopped production on our new anthology. The only thing that I'm really producing right now, besides the novels, is one graphic novel until we figure out how to sell them.
Right. Right.
And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not confident I'm going to figure it out. I know many people have told me that they're confident for me, my wife including them, but I mean, I've tried the online thing before and it just has never worked for me. So I don't see what is different now, except for the fact that I'm forced to spend a whole lot more money on online ads
Well,
because that's the only way that.
one thing that might be different uh, regarding now, as let's say a month or two ago, is that traditionally online you're competing with a lot of different sellers and vendors, and you have your audience, but there is a lot of competition for fewer eyeballs because there's still people in your demographic that want to go to those shows to meet you, right? They want to physically meet people, they want to get to know artists and things like that. But if those shows aren't available and those people aren't able to go to those places, they're going to be buying more online. Like your demographic will be spending whatever money they have to spend, like that's
Maybe. I mean, you're
well,
making an assumption, though, that people will have something to spend. I'm not making that assumption. I mean,
agreed.
17 million people went on unemployment in the past 3 weeks alone. So I make no assumption that people will have money. I'm hoping that they will, but I can tell you that I run a marketing agency and I literally had to shut it down this week because there was nobody was buying anything. So,
Right.
I see some opposite signs of that on Kickstarter. Kickstarter's books seem to still be funding now, but I think the reality of it hasn't set in for
Right.
many people. I think that most people think that this is going to be like a month or two blip and not like a year or two blip that they're going to have to really learn to deal with. So I don't know. I talk to a lot of people, and most of them seem to be making assumptions based on how things have been in the past. like people will be online to buy more stuff online.
Right.
But I don't think that I haven't heard a good theory or a good case for how you can consider marketing trends in the future to act like marketing trends in the past, when the only thing that we have to go on is that literally we're in a worse recession than 2010 already, and it's planning to last for 2 years. So I don't know. I mean, you may be right, but usually when there's a big explosion in some market, like things take a while to recover. And yes, they recover overall, but that market doesn't recover necessarily. I mean, horses and buggies never recovered after the car. Like, we got better as an economy of like making stuff, but like, you know, dirigibles went away. They just went away. They just like stopped existing. And like now, except for the Goodyear blimp or and like campy things, like the dirigibles just don't exist. So it's very possible that we're in a place where you know, people will be online and they will have money, and now like they'll be looking for stuff to do with that money that they now have because they're not going to shows. But it's equally likely that like we've seen a cataclysmic shift in the way that the universe exists, and that the things that were predictive in the past are not predictive of where we will be going in the next 5 or 10 years. I just had a conversation with Karen this morning, it was with my mother about selling our house. And I was like, I have no idea. Like, theoretically, we should be cratering below where our house's price was 10 years ago when we bought it, because we bought it during the recession, and the recession made prices go down. But I've never seen people put so much money, the government put so much money globally into a recovery as they are now. So, I mean, maybe things will be okay and everything will go along as normal. There's not enough data to make that assumption, I don't think, right now.
I think things are going to, I mean, they have to move forward in some way. I'm not entirely sure either where that's going to be. If we look at some of the things that have been implemented in other countries that are slowly recovering, contact tracing and requiring people to take their temperatures before going into, you know, shops and things like that. I'm not sure that the culture here in the United States is going to adopt to some of those measures, because there's so much insane protest just about, you know, wearing masks out in public at this point, that it seems like there's a lot of ego that gets in the way of evolving the culture to a point where things could possibly open in some semblance of normalcy. You know, like I was contemplating, because I, you know, have a small retail gallery in San Pedro, and I'm just trying to think of ideas of what that might look like in the future. What is the future of, you know, because my gallery, like the place where my gallery is at, is kind of like, you know, a regular reoccurring convention hall thing. You know, it's like the hall and the main hall in the convention where you can come meet all the artists. It's like a weird local version of that. So there's like all these different artists in there, but it's like that requires people, and it requires people in a small space. And the PTSD nature of what we're experiencing, like that's going to prevent people from wanting to go into any small spaces for a really long time. And like, I think it's going to be, people are going to want to go there, but then they're going to be fearful of going there. And I think there's going to be this sort of yin yang shift happening. But what could that be like in the future in order to make sure that we can navigate through this pandemic, even if it lasts for years? Is it all like sort of plexiglass hallways, you know, with like a single employee like picking up merchandise and showing it to you, and then like you take it through like a quarantined desanitization booth or something like that, where they get their product and the money exchange goes through some form of quarantining or disinfection between salesperson and customer, or is it just simply like there's security in front of the facility that takes people's temperatures and checks their QR code contact tracing thing to see if they're contagious, and if they're not contagious, they're allowed in. If they are contagious, they're sent away. Like those are things that are actually happening in other parts of the world where they have reopened for business. And I'm not saying that that's the best way either, because that also seems to have bit them in the ass as far as like reoccurring outbreaks and things like that. Whether or not that's working, I still is yet to be proven. I think that because there is so much denial of the reality of the situation within this particular country, because there are so many people that are like, I'm a positive thinker and everything is going to be back to normal in a month, like next 3 weeks. They only said it's going to be a month, on April 15th, we're going to be reopened and everything is going to go away. And I think there is I think the majority of the country right now is still in that mindset of everything's going to be fine.
Well, that's what I'm saying is you can't.
Which means that we're not doing anything to think about how can we navigate this world when it's not fine.
Sure, but I don't think that there's the mindset shift has to happen within people so that you can know what to do. Like everyone right now thinks that it's May 15th is the day that now we're supposed to be able to go back to start opening things in Los Angeles and Long Beach. So everyone's like, well, that's only 2 months. We only will have been 2 months, and then everything's going to be normal. So I'm with you that you've got to think about what will happen, but as far as long-term planning goes, there's too many variables to predict what consumer behavior will be like in August when this is still going on. This will still be going on in August, and it will still be going on in December, and it will still be going on this year, this time next year. It will be going on until there's a vaccine. And then frankly, it will probably go on again when the next thing comes, and the next thing comes, and the next thing comes. And there's a good chance that this is just every few years we're going to have to go through this. Because we're not getting any less interdependent, and pandemics are a portion of a price to pay for interdependency and globalization, where people from China can come here and then go to Australia and then go to Turkey and then bring an infection all over the world, or someone from here can go to Argentina and then go to Brazil and then go across to South Africa, and we can transmit it that way. And then we're not even talking about what happens when this is what I expect to have to happen to literally save the planet. This is going to have to happen. Just look at the air quality outside in Los Angeles now. It's as good as it's been since we invented transportation, since we invented cars. This is the kind of wide of global scale we're going to need to think about how to actually save our world so we can prevent it from disaster. And I think that this is we have to plan for the future, right? Because you can't just say I'm not going to do anything for 2 years. But it has been less than a month that this has been going on. And right now, I think we're in a cocoon and wait and see approach, because there's no way for us to know what's going to happen when retail stores open. Are comic stores even going to be, or bookstores going to be ordering books? Are they going to go out of business? What's going to happen to retail space?
Traditional retail was teetering on the edge of collapse already before this. Like bookstores
Exactly.
are
They said
closing
that
left and right.
a third of businesses in New York will not reopen.
I can imagine. Well, New York, above more than any other place I've ever been to, is just full of tiny little like boutiques. Like as for as big of a city as it is, it's got an amazing amount of quote unquote mom and pop shops that probably won't be able to recover from this because there are people that were paying their rent but with sales. It's again, it's like for me, like the market that my shop is in, it continues to exist. They have been cool about how they're handling the rent. Like they're not charging us for rent while we're not open, like which is cool. But like, how long can they actually do that and still maintain their lease on that property? Like when does that collapse? And I'm like, the landlords in New York, like, or any major city, like, granted, they probably have in many cases a lot more padding and cushioning than the actual shops themselves.
I don't know if
But
that's true.
I don't think it's true in every case. I think in a lot of the massive real estate moguls that own massive amounts of property around New York City and even California, I think that's true. Not necessarily in like the guy that owns one little strip mall and that's his little passion project and that's how he's paid his rent, his livelihood. I don't think every landlord is a mogul. My grandmother used to own apartment buildings. It's not like we lived in a castle. But I think there is potential for them to have a little bit more pad. But when that doesn't happen, when they don't have the money to maintain those properties anymore, what then happens to that? Like, it's like, I wonder how long it takes
Well, this is where the
for that
real
to
estate
collapse.
starts to crater because now they're
Yeah.
going to need people to come in, and they're going to be like, there's going to be an oversupply of places. But so there are all these loans now and like stimulus checks and stuff as well. So like, what happens when these emergency COVID grants run out and PPP runs out and unemployment runs out? And all of these things run out because right now we're being basically artificially floated to
Yeah.
make it feel like it's okay. But are they going to have PPP loans for the next 2 years? Like,
Yeah.
are they going to keep unemployment at with a $600 bonus for the next 2 years until like things get back to normal? Because I think what's going to happen is eventually it's going to be October, maybe. Maybe they extend it till October or November or December. But like eventually, it's all that's going to end. I remember when the unemployment under the Recovery Act ended for the Great Recession, and like just like, well, like there's no more money. What do you want me to do? Like, this is like we're ending this thing. You no longer, and that was like a very small amount. I think that was like 99 weeks of unemployment, but that was like an incredibly a small dent comparatively to plus $600, plus PPP loans, plus emergency grants, plus all of this other stuff. So I'm interested to see. So that's the one thing. It's like, okay, so like there's people in denying now, but there's also this massive flooding of like money into the system now. But I just don't, is that going to, if it continues for another year, then yeah, maybe it won't be so bad. But like, man, what an inflation of our currency we're going to get. Like, what is the whole world going to do when we're putting in $15 trillion into the economy every like over the next year? And everybody's doing it. Like, it's not just us. It's like Canada and Europe and Asia, they're all like going through this thing. And so like suddenly you're going to see, are we really just going to put $15 trillion, just going to print $15 trillion and expect that there's not going to be any inflation in our currency? Or are we all just going to be like, well, we all know that like money is a construct, right? So like this really doesn't matter. So we're all just going to say that none of this actually happened. And like, we're just going to like cut $15 trillion from the books now. And like, it won't matter because like it's all digital. Like, what is going to happen when all of this? What is
Like,
going to happen when the money actually dries up? Or is the money not going to dry up? And then across the world, there's hundreds of trillions of dollars of additional debt next year or in 2 years. I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying. There's so many variables. There's one variable of what happens if all of this continues, in which case, yeah, you can probably like do your online business, and you could expect people to be there buying. There's another one to expect, like, what if stores open and what if we can go back to work in like July, but like we have to do a lot of like work. There's another one of like, what happens if the money dries up and the government's just like, well, now 30% of you are unemployed and like go screw yourself, because that is if Joe Biden gets elected and Mitch McConnell still controls the Senate, there's a very good chance that Mitch McConnell is going to just say, well, screw America now. Like, Republicans aren't in charge, so I don't care, in January. And like, suddenly all of the money just gets pulled then. So, okay. So like, what happens if Donald Trump gets elected again? But like, there's a Senate that's controlled by Democrats. Like, there's so many factors in this thing that like, you can make a plan for all of them, but I think we have to see what happens so the first $600 credit for unemployment is supposed to start this Sunday in California, be retroactive to the 29th of March, and go through July 31st. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at the beginning of July if they extend it. It will be interesting to see what happens in July, what Gavin Newsom says about like opening shops, because hopefully by then we'll have some idea of our testing capability. And when the F is our testing capability going to rise to a level that we could do it? It feels like it's been at the same level for like a month. Like, when are we actually going to get people to be able to be tested in like the level that we need to? Is it in a month? Is it in a week? Is it in a year? No one seems to know or have any idea about any of this stuff. And until we get a high level on this, I mean, frankly, we just have to start like smoking a lot of weed, taking anti-anxiety pills, and like freaking hoping that our mortgage company is going to be cool with us not paying bills, because there's so many X factors. I understand X factors and pivoting, but like, something has to be stable. Like, there has to be some stability of something, so that okay, in August we're opening school, and in September we're opening schools, and we're opening stores in August, and most of these people that are on unemployment are going to be off unemployment. And if they're not off unemployment, we were going to extend it until October or December, or maybe the fourth stimulus bill will actually have like factors that say, if things ever get X bad, we are going to automatically institute money going into people's accounts. But I mean, according to this third stimulus bill, like come July, if this isn't fixed, we're effed. Like, everybody's just F. Like, you're effed, I'm effed, freaking Delta's F, United, like the whole country, the whole world is just, well, probably not the rest of the world, but the whole country at least is just like, tough. Go figure it out for yourself now. And that is what, if I'm projecting out to like, what can I plan for? The only thing I can plan for is that like, come August 1st, the whole of America is just going to become freaking a dust ball, because like, there's no more money that anyone's talking about. Right now, McConnell is saying they only want to deal with PPP loans. Pelosi is saying they want to do a whole bunch more. Donald Trump is saying that everything's okay and not to worry. And the whole world, the whole country is like, what is going on here? Like, what are we doing? Are we doing what California is doing? Are we doing what South Dakota is doing? And I don't know how to plan for it. So I'm not saying you shouldn't plan, but I'm saying like, I would be worried to have too solid a plan right now, because in 2 months, it could be Mad Max, or it could be Brave New World, or it could be just like whatever. It's America. So like, it's America now.
worst case scenario is possibly Mad Max. I mean, as fun as that sounds, it's probably going to be the worst case scenario if things devolve to a place where the looting becomes the norm. I've seen pictures of all the boutiques in Brentwood already boarded up, like preparing for the worst, which is pretty frightening to consider. But considering that in my brother's building in Brooklyn 2 days ago, the FedEx guy stole all the UPS packages on camera. It's kind of already starting. I ordered a package from Office Depot about 2 weeks ago. They never sent me tracking, so I called them up and I tried to track this package, and it was marked in their system as delivered. And when I told them it was not delivered and had them I had to go through and like wait forever to get somebody to investigate the thing. As it turns out, they never shipped it. They never even had it in stock, even though it was indicated it was in stock. And now it's on back order without any notification or anything like that. Now, in a normal world, they would have said, "Oh, we're sorry, this is sold out. It's now on back order." That would have been an automatic notification. But the fact that they, like this major company, marked it as a transaction that was completed, like as it was delivered, so they wouldn't have to deal with it anymore, is shady as hell. And that's like a big company that normally can function as, in a professional manner. And it seems like their system is severely broken as well. And I don't know if that's ever going to recover. I imagine at some point it will, but that's like very quick, shady tactics of companies that you wouldn't even expect to start functioning in a shady fashion, but they are already.
Right.
And it's only been less than a month.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important for us to talk about like what we can actually do, because we can't plan for the future, right? But like one thing that you can do is go and figure out the audience that you have and start serving them in the best way that you can. That might mean charging them for something. It might mean doing something for free. It's probably going to be a combination of both. But like there are groups of people that you are connected to that are your customers or in your fandom or in your audience on some level, and like you can still find out what they want and you can still make it for them. I have friends that are making masks right now. I have friends that are seamsters and seamstresses who are making masks. Yesterday, somebody came to my house with a box of strawberries and was selling like them by the box. And I bought 4 boxes from them for $10. I'm doing these free virtual conferences. A lot of my friends are doing like blind bag shipping or doing recipe exchanges or like whatever the thing is. They're doing something. And I think the people are still desperate for some sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
What can you do to make their lives normal? You could do a weekly Skype call or a Zoom call with them. Something that like you could do a monthly or a weekly, probably more a monthly like membership box that they can get something every month from you. So like they can have something that is just becomes part of their routine. And once it becomes part of their routine, it becomes a lot harder for them to stop that in the future. When it comes, you could do the box that becomes a credit at the store. There's all sorts of things that you can do now that you can assume this is the new normal. Like, I don't think it makes sense to assume that like this is ever going to change. But you can pivot assuming that this is the new normal for the decided future. And the way you do that is you look around at what you can do and what the situation is. So, for instance, with that virtual conference, I knew there would be hundreds, if not tens of thousands of people actually who didn't have a conference to go to that next weekend and wanted something to do. So I was able to leverage that into calling a bunch of my friends and putting together this convention for people. And we had pretty good sign up and attendance. I mean, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like 80,000 people, but we had like 30 or so people roughly on the whole weekend. At some point during the weekend, it was pretty consistent, like 30 people, 20 to 30 that was online the whole time. And after that, we were, we did these other ones, and we've got like 500 signups for one of the conventions, and we're about to start launching the next one next week, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback for it. And meanwhile, we just finished this. In the middle of the convention, we finished a Kickstarter for our book Cthulhu is Hard to Spell: The Terrible Twos, and it still raised $30,000 in that month. Even the first and that started like basically the Super Tuesday was when it started to go pear shaped, and it really got worse over the course of the campaign, and we still raised $30,000. So it's not like there's no money to be made now at this moment. It's not like you can't figure out ways to pivot now and make your company work. I'm working on a potential membership community. I'm working on doing Patreon. I'm working on assuming that this is the new normal. Yeah. Not that people are going to have money, but that people are going to be scared and annoyed and like need some solace. And I start from that moment, and then I figure out where I am and what I can pivot towards.
Let's check out your website. Let me toss to your website, and we'll like poke around there while you're talking about some of this stuff. You still have your podcast, which is I did notice that you're talking about membership stuff, and like the most recent episode of your podcast was with somebody that's talking about building a membership community. So like
absolutely.
A resource like that would help somebody get sort of start in building something of that nature.
Right. And I did a whole Kickstarter a mini season when we were running the Kickstarter. If you go to just the regular site and you look at the most recent posts, one of the most recent posts is for COVID grants.
The regular
and where you can go to get like, if you just go to thecompletecreative.com, so on the right side over there, it says COVID-19 loans and grants for creators. So I made a list of all the places you can go and that I have found that I have applied for grants and loans.
Nice pandemic yoga.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I don't know what I searched for there, but it was a good one that came up in my stock photo library. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there.
Yeah, so
I'm not really. I'm honestly not focused on talking about COVID-19 or what's different. I'm trying to keep things pretty much as they were. I'm trying to give people a respite from all of the craziness that has gone on. But I felt like I could not, at least so many people asked me what they could do. So I made a little list of stuff that I could send to people. And on my main website, also therussellnohelty.com, it really doesn't say anything about this stuff. We do talk about it sometimes on the podcast, but it's not the focus. So this is my main website.
Let's see. We got a list of your books here. Here we go.
Yep. So the Godsverse is the one that I'm known for. It's mythological fantasy. It's basically what if all gods were real, but they were dicks. It's predicated on the idea that when a habitable world is formed, all the gods come to make sure it kind of can function, make sure that it like is sustainable, and then once it's sustainable, they all but one god leave to go to another habitable world. That's why we used to have a lot of god sightings, and then we didn't. The god we're left with is Bacchus, who's a vain drunk, and he turned everything from the temples of worship from the multi-gods into something for himself. He oversaw, like he was there when an apocalypse, when a biblical apocalypse started, which is a big no-no. And then it sort of expands from there. It goes from 3,000, the apocalypse happens right around now. And so the book series happens from 3,000 years, 2,000 years, and 3,000 years in the past, 1,000 years in the future, over a 13,000 year timeline. Then there's 4 novels that prequel novel is part of Death, and Death Follows behind her too. And then there's 2 graphic novels as well. If you're
cool.
liking graphic novels, my main series is called Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter.
You
It's
are
about a
insanely prolific dude.
This is a decade of stuff though, so it's
Still prolific.
nonfiction.
Here we go. Here's graphic novels.
So Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter is about a psychopath that escapes a mental asylum and becomes a monster hunter, but doesn't know if he's killing monstrous humans or it's all in his head the whole time. We just finished issue 9. And so we're hoping to have the third volume done this fall, so that we can bring that to Kickstarter, hopefully late this year or early next year.
So should
And
we?
then
I
also edit anthologies.
Should we expect a Netflix series with starring Ichabod Jones and animated series?
Well, the entirety of Hollywood is shut down. We were planning on taking it out finally next month, but that has all shifted focus now that it's very hard to get meetings anywhere.
Fair enough. Yeah, although independent animation is still alive and flourishing. SNL is now producing everything with webcams at home, except for an animation that they hired an independent animator to make. This guy just like whipped out this amazing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tribute thing on his own in like his home studio. Essentially, like all mainstream production has become YouTubers.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not like the world has ended. There's still plenty of ways and need for content and ways to make money and ways to like serve your audience. You just have to go out and find them. And I'm trying to find them in my own way. But I think some of the coolest things that I've seen are like stores that are doing like blind bags or subscription boxes suddenly, or they're just bundling a bunch of their comics together and like being like, hey, I'll give you 10 comics for $20 and you don't know what you're going to get. I'm just going to go through my back catalog and give you something cool that's worth more than $20. They're doing auctions on their Facebook pages for keys and such and stuff. And so there's a whole bunch of things moving online now. So one of the best places that I found is I've been contacting either contacting or contacted by a lot of shows who are now going online and trying to like become a speaker at their convention when I probably never could have been a speaker at their convention before because it's like small and in the middle of nowhere. But now I can, because they're going online, I have more access to doing these things. So there's tons of opportunity and there's tons of ways to leverage this. I don't recommend trying to figure out what's going to happen when all of this ends and just assume that like this is like right. You can do so much in 1 month. I went from having done one convention a month ago to basically having 3 total planned, one about to run this month. I finished a Kickstarter. I finished editing a couple of novels. And so like I've done a whole bunch of stuff in the month. So I would say instead of planning what to do in the future, ask what can you do in the next month, the next week to find your audience, to serve them, to grow your audience, assuming that this is the new normal. Because the worst thing you can do is be like, well, once this all gets done, stores open and things open and X, Y, and Z happens, then I can get back to business. But the truth is, even if in the middle of May is when we can go back to business as usual, and like literally just May, everything started again, you will still have missed 2 months of the year, 2 months of audience growth, 2 months where other people are leaping ahead of you and doing other stuff and figuring things out and figuring out new and interesting things to do. So when all of the shows went away, I lost 30% of my income. My marketing business went away. I pretty much lost another 40% of my income. So I am down basically 70% of my income from streams that I had last year. And all I can do is be like, what can I do now today to put one foot in front of the other and be further along at the end of the day than I was at the beginning of the day. And the worst thing that happens if you do that is in a month, everything goes back to normal and all of the skills you learned are put on the back burner so that all of the skills that you already had will be able to take center stage. But I'm actually very excited to be able to figure out online sales. This is the catalyst that I needed. I've always said I need to do it, but now I literally need to do it to survive. So I'm excited to go to do Facebook ads and to figure all this stuff out and hope that I can figure it out before the runway that I've given myself runs out, and that there's still some money in the bank for something.
Well, I believe in you, man. You're a survivor. You'll figure it out. I think we all have to figure it out in some way, shape, or form. But you're doing great stuff. I appreciate what you do and the community you bring together and the support that you give that community. Thanks for coming on my weird little podcast.
Thank you for having me.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you, they just need to go to your website. Can you plug your websites?
Yeah. So the easiest thing to do if you're a creator is go to thecompletecreative.com. That's where you find all my epic blog posts, my podcast, The Complete Creative, which also streams on YouTube and a whole lot more. If you are a reader, and you like monsters and mythology, you like action, adventure, fantasy, magic, people taking their fates into their hands and fighting against the gods that dick them over, then I highly recommend you go to russellnohelty.com, which is just my name. You sign up for a mailing list. You get a couple of first issues for free. You get the first issue of Ichabod Jones Monster Hunter, the first issue of Katrina Hates the Dead, a backstory for Katrina about the first day of the apocalypse called Katrina Hates the World, and a couple more things. So depending on whether you're a writer, or creator, then I recommend The Completely Creative, or just a reader who wants to, or even a writer, creator who wants to just get out of this world and go into a far off fantastical place. Then russellnohelty.com will take you to all of my writing.
You also have some workshop packages that people could purchase if they want to get a little extra deep dive with you as well. Can you talk a little bit about?
I do. I have on thecompletecreative.com. If you go to thecompletecreative.com/courses, you can see I have a 2-hour one-on-one workshop. I have my most popular course, Build a Rabid Fan Base, which frankly I think all creators should take, especially now. Build a Rabid Fan Base will show you how to find your perfect audience, create something that they're guaranteed to love, and then scale it. I have Kickstarter courses and a whole bunch of other courses as well. So you can see my Write a Great Novel course is free. I have all the interviews for my podcast for free. I do not have my two most popular courses, Build a Rabid Fan Base and my Facebook ads course there. If you are interested in either of those, they are each $500. I can put you on a 12-month payment plan if you would like. And all you have to do is email me at russell@wannabepress.com. That's 2 S's and 2 L's.
I very much appreciate your time. And get masked up, stay healthy, and best of luck to you and all us, the creatives, surviving this pandemic.
Yes, we can survive. I know this was quite a bummer for like the middle part of this interview, but like
I think it's a necessary conversation.
I mean, there's plenty of opportunity. There's so much opportunity out there right now. I mean, like for everybody that has ever wanted to do digital, this is like literally the time to start and do it because
absolutely
there's no other option.
Well, I mean, yeah, mainstream media is turning to YouTubers. So YouTubers had something figured out a long time ago.
Right, exactly.
But all right, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a great day. Thanks for having me on.
Yep.
Thanks for hanging with us throughout all that. It's pretty insane that we talked about looting in April and it only took 2 months for it to explode all over the country. Was it directly related to the pandemic? No, but I am sure that everyone isolating themselves for 3 months fearing a deadly invisible virus didn't help the already volatile nature of systemic racism and fear of the other. If you want to learn more about Russell, you should. He's a badass. Be sure to check out his podcast and courses online at thecompletecreative.com. And to dig into his catalog of fantastic books, please find him at russellnohelty.com. And as always, if you can, please be sure to help support your favorite creatives today so they can continue to create. If you can't financially support, sharing their work on your social media, telling your friends, and generally spreading the good word for them is great as well. If you're a creative, amazing person who wants to be on our show, or you know a creative, amazing person that you think needs to be on our show so we can continue talking about creative, amazing things and stuff, please reach out and let me know. Drop a comment, DM me. Let's make it happen. If you dig what you heard and saw, please consider subscribing to us on YouTube and all the other major podcast networks. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Artsy Fartsy Show. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay weird, stay awesome, and catch you in the next episode.
This show is brought to you by Embrace the Weird, a lifestyle brand for weirdos. From original crazy t-shirt designs to handmade eccentric earrings, they have everything you need to embrace your inner weirdo. Please visit embracetheweird.design for more.
Support this show at Patreon. Please support this show and buy some merch. Please support this show on Patreon. Please support this show.